Hey guys, sorry the light could be better. The sun went down and the appointment started. Anyway, I wanted to give Dr. Kaufman a stage to update us and tell us what's going on, and that's what I'm going to do. Come on, Wiley. This is the first time that I'm doing a Skype call via OBS, so bear with me. I'm going to start this right now. I'm pretty sure I hit this button here. And I'm going to go over here to Skype. Hello, buddy. Hello. And I'm going to call. Let's see, I'm going to call. Hello.
Hey man, where are you?
I'm in my house. On the
No,
floor.
I mean, I don't see you.
Oh,
Are we doing audio?
actually, so the way I've got it is that they can see me, but you can't see me. Let me see.
Hold on, I'm gonna go turn off that light.
Okay,
Yeah, I
great.
see you now.
Okay, great. All right. Good to see you. Let me make
You too,
sure everybody's
man.
here. All right, good. You guys can hear okay, right? Everybody's giving a good audio. Andy,
Are we live right now?
Yeah, we're live right now, and I've just switched over to OBS, a new piece of software, and so I appreciate everybody working with me on that. It seems like everything's going great, though, so I think we're good, so we don't even have to talk about the technicalities of it. Just want to make sure everybody can hear us okay, and it looks like everybody's good. So, man, it's been a freaking whirlwind since we spoke last. At least, you know, I mean, we talk almost every day, but you know what I mean. Like since we've spoken last in a forum that other people would see. How about that?
Yeah, that's true. It has been a while
Yeah.
since the 9/12 piece, right?
Yeah, the that was a firecracker, and I'm just I'm not the only one. I've got at least 15 notes of people telling me, please tell him thank you. You've been an amazing force in all this, and man, way to go! I don't mean to put you on the spot, but seriously, kicking ass. I love it.
Well, I wish I could do more. You know, just trying to do what I can.
Well, you're on this now pretty much full time. You know, you've been basically I've seen you on channels pretty much every day, so you're spreading the word, and the word is out, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of words, so some good thumping going on when it comes to truth for sure. Okay, so let me make sure that I can see this right. Okay, there. So I have to be there. Before we go on, Carolyn asks a question. I want to see what you think about this.
Yeah.
Do you think exosomes or endosomes, kind of both, and I didn't even know there was something called endosomes, are related to the endocannabinoid system?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think exosomes are distinct from endosomes because they have genetic material, for example, whereas endosomes don't. They would have different types of things. But the cannabis issue is something there's really very little knowledge about because they basically don't really consider it in any courses of physiology, and there's almost no research on it. The federal government has very strict guidelines about any research with cannabis because it's still illegal federally. So there's like one or two institutions, I think the University of Mississippi is one, that they allow to do any studies, and there's really no grants to study the endocannabinoid system. So very little is known about it. It's really strange, and you know I can't help but think that it has something to do with cancer because there is a wealth of data showing from laboratory studies that various cannabinoids and terpenes that are found in the cannabis plant have anti-cancer properties. I mean, it's a veritable gold mine for that, and a lot of people have healed from cancer with it. So, you know, that's one hypothesis I have, but there's really almost no scientific information on it.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like the climate thing all over again, where if you have giant truckload of grants that.
Yeah. Well, James, like there's a big similarity there in the approach of the scientific community, because you can find articles, a lot of articles in medicine and in climate science, where if you read what they actually experiment that they did and the results and the data that they found, and then read like the title of the article and the conclusion, and it doesn't match. Right? Like there was this one Scientific American article, and it was about the ice core data. That's what made me think of it. And, the problem with the ice core data is that it shows that the CO2 rise follows the temperature rise by hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. So it couldn't possibly cause it, right? And so this Scientific American article was about that they had found they had decreased some error in their measurements looking at ice core samples, and they found that rather than 1,000 years, it was more like 300 years. And so they said that supported that CO2 causes global warming, even though it was still 300 years after the temperature rise. Right. So it was like, but the title of the article, said new evidence for global warming or something like that. So it's totally weird. And that's what's happened with many of these virus papers, where they say they've done something in the title, like identified a new virus that causes disease, but then in the experimental procedure and the results, they didn't do any such thing. They did something totally different.
Right. Yeah, it sounds very much like AP and Reuters, just how they function right now, right? You have an endless conveyor belt of headlines that are coming out, and that's a fashionable scarf to wear at the time, and basically whatever you want to push as your fashion. News is such a fashion. It really is. It's a fashion. You wear your news like a fashion. If you believe that you're a dirty human, carbon, you're going to wear that fashion by posting articles, that express your personal belief about something. It's news is such a fashionable thing that we wear. We wear it on our mind. We actually apply it to our mind. Oh yeah, I'm so dirty. Oh God, I'm just awful. Oh. We wear it like makeup. We use it to signal each other. We find mates with it. It's a daily. It's how you climb the ladder. So. Or not climb the ladder. In my case, as all of us have gone through our own levels of that. So rejecting things like this is caloric intake, and it's profound. Since you gave your anatomy of COVID talk, I've never even considered terrain theory as even a phrase that I knew, and it's profound. It's profound because when you go into a hospital, you literally say, "I believe in germ theory." I mean, you have to say that because you're in the hospital. You're not in your terrain anymore. You're now in their terrain, and they are going to do nothing but assume that something's wrong with you, that you're the thing that's broken, that it's something inside of you that's the poison, and that requires an adoption. A freaking technology of belief adoption in germ theory. You accept it's like sin. It's like ignorance. It's like racism. It's like xenophobia. You accept this mortal flaw inside of you, and then you build your entire framework, your study, around proving that flaw.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's a major logical error. Right, because you just have this one idea that you accept as a law, like you said, right, as completely true, and everything else is built on that. But if that thing is actually not true, which in germ theory's case, there's really just no scientific evidence behind it. I mean, but there's so much obfuscation. It's really crazy. I was just before, when I was waiting for your call, someone sent me this article from Nature, I think it's 2008, and it says, the title of it is Koch's postulate satisfied for SARS virus. Okay? And then right there in the first sentence, it says basically, according to Koch's postulates, as modified for viruses into this, which is something totally different. So right there, it's like the first sentence doesn't agree with the title, right, because it didn't say revised Hill criteria met, right? It said Koch's postulates. And it just wasn't true. And then in the study, in this article, it said, well, 3 of them have already been satisfied by other papers. And it did list them. I haven't gotten to see them yet, but I'm sure that they didn't satisfy it. And then it says they satisfied the rest of the 3 here, but then they didn't say where they even got the so-called isolated virus that they gave to these monkeys in the paper. They just put the dose that made them sick. So it's like, they're saying that it came from a sick monkey in the wild and they gave it to healthy monkeys, but in the paper they didn't actually describe where they got it or how it was prepared or what was in it or anything like that. Right. So you can't tell anything from reading that paper. And I bet if I go and read the other papers and the references that, it's going to show that, no, they didn't satisfy any of it. Right? Because I've been looking at tons of papers that say they satisfied this. And sometimes they're honest. Like there's one paper in the New England Journal about COVID-19 where buried deep in a paragraph in the bottom, it says, although we did not satisfy Koch's postulates. So it's satisfying to see that, at least in one paper. But it was buried, it wasn't the headline. For sure. But it's just amazing, like reading so many papers and every single time that it's totally fudged. It's
really no different than any other propaganda that you would find in the world. Like it's if you really think about it, if you go to buy a used car, you're going to get the same kind of thing. And I'm not bashing used car salesmen. If you go into a mall, if you anywhere you go, that this is the propaganda is a necessary part of that, and we have been pretending pre-apocalypse. We've been pretending that there's no propaganda inside of anyone that wears a white coat or a black robe, even, and that seems to be the big.
I've been in both those realms, James, and they're like among the worst places.
Well, isn't it funny though that seems to be a universal thing? That most people believe that's an uncorruptible genre. In fact, if you could really point to the biggest problems that we've had in the last 30, 40 years, it's been this, actually more than that, since 1910, since the Civil War. Since forever, we've had this. We've given certain. It's all, man. I keep saying this. It's all about fashion. I'm telling you, there's this voodoo fashion thing that happens where we've been trained to put this awe into a costume, and it's putting the doctor on the pedestal, it's putting the soldier on the pedestal, it's putting the politician on the pedestal, and it's putting the law enforcement person on the pedestal, and every one of those fuckers is like really, really bad sometimes, like really bad people, and they're bad because we're putting them on the pedestal. We're creating our own reality by doing that. We're not scrutinizing the most important thing that we should scrutinize, and it's not their fault. It's our fault. That's really bad that we've been doing it for so long.
No, you're right. Ultimately, it's our responsibility, and there's disclosure about all this from mainstream sources. They put it right out there in the open, right? Like Ioannidis' famous article saying that most published research findings are false.
Yeah.
And this is a guy from Stanford, right? And that was like one of the most cited articles in all of the literature, and yet we're still looking at every paper as if it's true.
That was like,
right?
There's 2 different ones, right? First of all, half of all research will be proven wrong in 20 years, right? And
no, 5 years. That's what they tell you in medical school.
Okay.
Like in the orientation. But this Ioannidis article, the Stanford guy, like that was published in a PLOS journal. That's like one high impact factor, big journal, and it's has among the most citations of any article. So in other words, it's been cited more times than almost all other articles have ever been cited. Right? That's how impactful a paper it is. But even though everybody references it and knows about it, they don't then look at all the papers in front of them in their own research and realize, oh, at least half of these are total BS.
Right.
Right? They don't look at it that way. They don't implement it. Right. And so it's the same thing with doctors, and because so published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, right? Mm-hmm. Totally mainstream, represents doctors, that every year 128,000 people die from prescription drugs, like taken as directed.
Yeah.
So, there's no data on how many people are saved by prescription drugs, but I'll tell you, it's probably close to zero.
How many people die again from that?
128,000 every year.
Yeah.
And then, combine that with the Johns Hopkins study, right? Johns Hopkins, where they had Event 201. Mm-hmm. They published the study that said that from medical errors every year, 250,000 people die.
Wow.
So if you combine those two numbers,
yeah,
you get 378,000 a year. That's the third leading cause of death, according to the CDC. It beats respiratory illness. And that doesn't count all of the deaths, like it doesn't count deaths from vaccines. But there you have a Harvard study saying that the VAERS, the vaccine reporting system, only covers about 1% of the actual vaccine injuries and deaths. Mm-hmm. So that could be, additional thousands or tens of thousands.
Yep, that's a clever way of covering up the exact same thing. It's the exact same problem, but it's been categorized into 5 different groups to make it lower. And again, that problem is us believing in them with no scrutiny. We are distributing prana. We are distributing belief to them where they haven't earned it. They hasn't been earned yet. Vaccines are a perfect example of that. There is not, please correct me if I'm wrong, but there is not one clinical proof, scientific proof, whatever, there's not one proof that shows that a vaccine has ever prevented an illness, right?
Absolutely not. No proof of that at all.
Like none. Not like, oh, well, there's some.
Not a shred.
There's literally none.
There's plenty of evidence to the contrary, but not one shred of evidence to support that vaccine prevents any illness.
There's also an archetypal, how do I put this? Because I think it's really important. So germ theory is the idea that, I know I've said it before, but germ theory is the idea it's inside you. The poison's inside you. And vaccine is literally an aluminum rape inside you. It's like a piercing, it's piercing inside you. It's penetrating you with swine poison, metal, salt, aluminum salt that you're not even allowed to see the recipe for. The adjuvant itself is proprietary. The adjuvant's ingredients, guys, of the adjuvant, just the adjuvant part, is actually private property. It's owned by a corpse. A corporation owns that. You're not even allowed to see how the adjuvant salt is made. It's a special kind of formula. The point I'm trying to make is that the vaccine itself and germ theory themselves are the same thing. They're both inserting a poison inside of the middle of you, inside of your central core, which is the exact opposite of the terrain. It's like a really dark black magic spell. I know I'm going off the rails here, Andrew, but it's such a focus.
No, you're totally accurate. You can even take it into the scientific realm, and it's the same thing, because why do they add the aluminum hydroxide in the first place? It's because you make more antibodies. Well, why do you make more antibodies? Because it's more toxic. Mm-hmm. Yep. Your body freaks out when that stuff comes in. It makes a crap load of antibodies, and that's the point of it. But it's antibodies to the aluminum. It's not to whatever they say they're putting in there, some representation of a disease that's never been proven. Mm-hmm. Right? And those antibodies are not very specific. And the corporate point you make up is very important too, because, aside from the fact that 3 corporate stakeholder in the healthcare field, so every drug company, medical device manufacturer, health insurance company, et cetera, et cetera. And they're basically control what the CDC does because the funding source, everything follows the money. And so that Harvard study I mentioned about the vaccine injuries being severely underreported, after they came up with that preliminary finding, the CDC pulled the funding and said, stop the project.
Yep.
So they didn't even publish a scientific paper on it. You can only find like newspaper interviews where they give the findings, because the CDC quieted them.
Well, and no one is even really checking anyway because there's an assumption up and down the board, that they're safe and effective. And that assumption is from the mantra, vaccines are safe and effective. That's been said over and over and over again. Regardless, they didn't say vaccines are safer and effective when they stopped putting mercury in them. They just kept saying, no, they're safe and effective. So it's never been upgraded. It's the most stunning part of this. The most stunning thing to me is how little health practitioners know about vaccines. I ask them, hey, did you have fun at vaccine camp? Ask them that. Ask them, hey, how hard was vaccine school? Ask them, hey, when you read all the inserts in medical school, how was the quiz on that? What was the test like? Was that really hard? Was that super hard? Was it? Like, just ask. And you'll find out, really sheepishly answer, you'll find out.
Well, I can answer that if you want.
Please do. Please do.
I mean, basically, the extent of it was really teaching you the schedule. It's like there's this really complicated table from, the CDC because there's like 50 or 60 different injections that you're supposed to give. And so our job was to keep track of that and make sure it didn't get messed up. And so that's the main thing they emphasized. I mean, they did teach us that typical immunology, but there was not one study, no epidemiologic data about vaccines at all, just telling us that, they save lives.
Yeah.
They're a miracle. They're the miracle of the 20th century.
Let's bridge that, if we can, and talk about procedure a little bit, because as a doctor, you perform a lot of procedures. In fact, pretty much, I would say everything you do is technically, I don't mean you personally, Andrew, I'm talking about typical, it's called a procedure, right?
Yeah, well, in psychiatry, there's not really any procedures except for electroconvulsive therapy, which, I've never advocated. I've observed it, during my training. But in my earlier career, I've done tons of procedures.
Right. As a PA and things like that. It's
and as a resident.
Everything is broken down into procedures as much as possible. And even the definition of procedure means it's the official way. The definition isn't it's the best way, it's the awesomest way. The definition means it's the official way of doing something. And when you break something down by procedure, I guess I should ask this question, but because I'm in the military, I know what the answer is. I know. When you break things down into a procedure, a blindness is automatically inserted into the field. It's a requirement because you are now trying to perfect the procedure. Your ritual of the procedure is your focus now. Your focus is not the patient. Your focus is on performing the procedure properly. And these are different functions. These are different things. And my biggest concern about it is when you've been trained in procedure, let's think about a foxhole. If you've been trained to kill, to load your gun, to eat, to kill, to load your gun and eat, but you've never been trained on how to stop and don't shoot, you enter into a ritual where there's no way out. And what I'm getting at is that vaccines don't have a way out. There's no procedure for a nurse to say, I'd like to fill out section 427, the holy fuck, what are we doing form? Like, right? They don't. There's not that procedure. That it doesn't exist.
No, the only procedure for there is the resignation letter.
And most of us, look at how much you've invested.
Oh, no, it's not. Nobody does that.
Yeah. I mean, you've invested what, 8 years at least for a nurse? I mean, at the very least, it's probably more than that if you consider.
Well, for a nurse, not necessarily. Like most nurses, the highest degree is a bachelor's in nursing. But many of them might have done their college in something different and then go back to nursing school for 2 years.
Right. Any like skilled ER nurse probably has a ton of experience under their belt. They burned a lot of calories to get there and to do what they're doing. And doctors is obviously times 10. It's so much more. The point is that for them to resign is to sacrifice all of that. All of that is gone. And where else do you pick up? What else do you do? You know?
Well, this is why many of my doctor friends have, said, written me off since I've been speaking publicly, because they realize if they take what I'm saying seriously, and they should, because, what I'm saying is pretty accurate, then they would have to sacrifice everything.
Right.
I mean, it would turn their whole life upside down. Even me, like, I didn't abruptly pull out of that. It's been a process over years, right? And I'm not fully out of the system, but I'm not doing what the system wants me to do. But I'm almost there.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that I believe it's exactly because of your experience that you have a unique perspective, because you understand how the mind will lie to itself, will try and save the sacrifice. It's someone who specializes in surgery doesn't specialize in this kind of knowledge. They're not working with patients in this kind of way. They're not confronting their denials. They're not helping them overcome certain blindnesses that they have. This is right up your alley.
Yeah, well, actually, it's a good point about the procedures and the surgeons, because like when many of the surgeons, they don't ever really interact with the person when they're awake. Like they come into the OR, they've looked at the films, the x-rays or CT scans or whatever, and they've thought about the procedure, like you said. But when they come in, the person is completely covered with drapes and stuff, right? There's actually this big frame around like the head and neck, unless you're doing brain surgery. And this anesthesiologist is on that side dealing with the head and the breathing. Like you just have this big drape in front of you, and there's a section that's open that you see flesh.
Wow.
And so it's very impersonal. I mean, it's the same thing when you're doing procedures at the bedside, like a lumbar puncture, a central line. It's like it's very impersonal. Like you said, you're not interacting, you're just focusing on the procedure. And I mean, part of that is necessary because these things aren't the easiest things to do always. But you never question, well, why am I needing to do this in the first place?
Right.
Why do we need to give anything intravenously? There's almost no reason at all to ever do that. Even, if someone is dehydrated, you could easily give fluids rectally. You don't need to stick a needle and cause that trauma. And that, even though that little needle you think of, it doesn't hurt that much, it's not a big deal, but it totally sets off your immune response, and which is a stressful thing for your body to go through. It requires a lot of energy. And if they're injecting toxic substances, when you have an immune response, there's always a response that goes to your central nervous system, to your brain, because it's maybe your immune system's way of being prepared or interacting with CNS functions, but you always get that response. So if you have like a child who's like upset, like it's not the first time they've been vaccinated and now they don't want it, and it's like they're screaming and they're struggling and the nurse is holding them down, and they get 2 or 3 shots in their thighs, well, they're gonna basically just transport whatever's in those shots right up to the brain.
I when you think about terrain theory, and when you apply that to placebo effect, which is just so profound, it's so profound, the placebo effect. It makes me think lately, this has been something you've shown me. I should clarify that, because you may very well disagree. It's from watching your work, it's made me extrapolate this idea that the immune system is an electrical field. It's like an egoic field that we have. because of the placebo effect, because of terrain theory itself, we become immune to our environment when we have a certain electrical field to us, a confidence, a sense of pride, a sense of I'm worth it, that all these things would affect us. If we can just call it an electrical field, it would affect us in that way. And what I'm getting at, Andy, is that if you look back at all the electrification of America, in the late 1800s, and I know you've been touching on this stuff, but the first Russian flu we had was also right in line of when we were putting up electrical lines. If you look at Tesla, energy, frequency, vibration, if you add that to the placebo effect, add that to the fact that a needle is literally a metallic interruption of your electrical field that comes with a doubt, a belief that you are not able to heal yourself unless I stick this inside you. It's creating electrical field change that stays as a function of your belief because you believe this about yourself. Again, placebo effect. This isn't even a stretch what I'm talking about, I don't think.
Yeah, well, obviously there's a lot of truth to that. I was just talking about electroconvulsive therapy before, right? So that's where you purposely deliver an electric shock to a person to cause a seizure, right? So clearly electricity, changes our physiology. And of course, many of our body functions are really related to electricity, right? Like we have all these ion pumps. Obviously, we have EKGs, right, where we read the electrical field waves,
Yes.
Right, the potential waves. We know how neurons communicate through an action potential, which is an electric wave, right? So this is very mainstream stuff. It's just that it's never looked upon as a bidirectional force in the mainstream physiology and medicine.
Right.
They just talk about it as a matter of fact, like it's really a chemical process, even though it's electrical and it's moving charges, and they can measure it, with voltmeters and such. That's how they learned about this from nerve cells. They put electrodes in the brains of animals, and then they monitor the voltage over time. And so, of course, this stuff is all real. And a lot of things disrupt our electrical energy fields, like especially electromagnetic radiation from all kinds of devices, Wi-Fi, 4G, 5G, Bluetooth, dirty electricity, all these things.
Propaganda.
And then, of course, what?
Propaganda.
Yes.
It's not even a joke.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lie is an electrical field.
So how many of these other things that maybe we don't see as electricity can affect us through the same kind of channels and directly affect our physiology like that?
Right.
Absolutely.
So when I grew up, they told me that my heart pumps my blood through a muscular action, that the heart was so strong that it could squeeze and let go, and squeeze and let go, and squeeze and let go. And that was able to push all the oxygen all over the place. And as I understand it now, it's actually more of an electrical process. Am I wrong or right, or can you fix that?
Yeah, well, Tom Cowan wrote a book about this, actually, which is supposedly on the way to me, so I'll have to read that and tell you more. But, I think nothing about physiology that we know is what it seems. Right. And, I think the immune system is a great example of that because, we're kind of taught that it's this army, it's like the warfare paradigm, natural killer cells, right? Everything is about killing the bacteria. Mm. And I don't think that's really what the immune system does. I think about it as more like support and logistics, right? Where it does handle situations that identifies an intruder, but it doesn't attack it, it contains it. And removes it as quickly as possible. But and a lot of the job is just moving things around logistically. Where is this thing going to cause the least harm? If it can't get out of the body, where can I put it? Right. That's going to be okay, right? All these kinds of decisions.
It's a major and it's giving it a place to sit or to put it somewhere. I've got to hang on a second. Hey, you listen up here, Mr. The Way. The placebo effect is real. We're not making this up. You're literally get out of here and go to YouTube and do a TED Talk. Start on TED Talk level and look up placebo effect because this is all legit. The way all these pills are marketed, you actually have to remove the placebo effect in the lab before they can turn around and test if it's legit. This is not new age stuff. This is how medicine works. It's a technology of belief. Go ahead.
Even like if you want to submit an application for a new drug or a therapeutic to the FDA for approval, you have to have placebo-controlled trials, right? So it's a requirement to get any drug approved. It's a standard thing because like in antidepressant trials, the placebo effect gets 30 to 40% of the people better. And with the antidepressant, it's 31 to 41%.
Exactly. and until we understand that true power, release the cures really is all about you. Your apocalyptic opening into understanding the placebo effect is going to do more to heal your body than letting someone fucking inject you with swine parts. Like seriously, it's not even the same ballpark. It's so freaking different. And it's only when we're looking at it now through the lens of, hey, white coats doesn't mean shit. It's only through looking at the procedure for what it is that you can truly understand the truth of what we're saying here. So much of this, guys, has to deal with electricity. It has to because of the placebo effect. That's giving you the hint. It's telling you how this works. And if you listen to your salts, the fact you've got these salts in your body, that's an electrical difference. You're a living meat capacitor. And it's weird because if you go to emergency room, there's not an oscilloscope. Nurses aren't hooking you up and checking. There's nothing about your electrical field. They put you
on a heart monitor.
Is that an electrical?
Oh, yeah. They monitor your respirations through like plethysmography or some other transduction mechanism. So, I mean, they do electrical monitoring, but not your whole body, right? Because they're not aware of that. But have you ever heard of sham surgery?
No.
So, one area where they used to do placebo trials was in surgical procedures. And then at some point they said it was unethical, but that's really just a way to make it a lot easier to show surgery is successful. So what they did this for bypass surgery. It was a pretty large study. I think it was in the early 70s. And so one group got cardiac bypass surgery for angina, right, like heart pain. And the other group got sham surgery, where they basically just made a skin incision in the chest and but didn't do any surgery. And guess what?
What?
The people with the sham surgery improved just as much as the people with the real surgery.
Fuck. Okay, you guys in chat, tell that way guy to kiss my ass because listen to this. It works in surgery too. It's
that study is talked about in Norton Hadler's book. I can't remember the title of it, but
man,
people want references.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It shouldn't be because it just backs up what I'm saying. But again, see, guys, we have to lift this veil off the idea that the placebo effect is less. Even the word placebo, it's even got this sort of like Limp Biscuit ass kind of connotation to it. The word should really be Krakondia, or this like really powerful word, because that's what it's about. You're electrically going and you're fixing shit, or you're breaking shit.
Yeah, no, it works both directions. Like you can make yourself physically ill purely through your mental power.
Well, it's a good thing that there's not like some bullshit propaganda virus going around, or else people would be like showing symptoms and creating them out of the spot purely from the fact that a bunch of people would be wearing masks who were freaking out. Like, thank God that's not happening. Yeah,
well, just the masks themselves restrict your airflow for breathing.
Oh, masks. You helped me. I called you up one morning and I said, hey, man, I want to make a flyer. I'm trying not to be a dick about it. Can you doctor this up for me? Basically, it's literally asking to doctor it up. And you did. It was great. You gave me some exact, it was a great flyer, guys. In fact, you can find it on my website, but it's basically listing off, here's the medical doctor reasons as to why it's so bad. Basically, chronic respiratory illness, right? Is the way to approach that. Although none of us should be wearing masks anyway, and nor should we be placing plexiglass dividers up everywhere. All we're doing is, the world is not a salad bar, all right?
I love that one.
This is insane. I went to the grocery store today, and the lady had a Ziploc freezer bag on top of the credit card machine. And she wanted me to stick my hand inside the plastic bag and then stick it in there and then do the transaction at the grocery store. And so I'm not going to play along. So I play dumb, and I'm trying to stick the card in with the plastic bag. So I'm like cramming the plastic bag in there. And she's like, no, don't do that. And I was like, let me figure out. And I just keep pushing it like that, just making it as difficult as I can, because it's like,
so you're saying that she wants to make sure all of her customers get exposed to whatever by putting their hand in the same bag that's collecting all the germs?
It's a magic bag, Andy. Because it's a Ziploc freezer bag, when your hand's inside it, even though it's not open, when your hand's inside it, all the viruses are like, oh shit, it's no. Because see, the viruses have to go down and then up, see? And it's because they have to go down and then up that they're magically fooled by everything. So what we really need is, instead of masks, we just have to keep doing this whenever we walk around. And if you just do this, then no viruses can get inside you.
Plus you'll get good at boxing.
That too. So it's really bad. It's really bad.
These particles can't move on their own, right?
Well, that's not what she said.
Oh, really?
She said they hunt you down. And
wow.
And if you didn't wear a mask, they would find you first. So, yeah.
If I were looking to take people out, I think I'd go for the masked people first.
Well, let's talk about that for a sec, because if we go back to it being an electrical field, if you were feeling a certain way inside you, if you needed to have a chemical feeling of shame, you might want to cover your face, because covering your face is a sign of shame. In fact, if you look at the anonymous phenomenon, QAnon, anonymous whistleblowers, we've shamed everyone in culture. If you have a face, we've shamed you. But if you don't have a face, we've called you a hero. And we're calling you protected. Nothing can happen to you now when you're wearing a mask. This changes our electrical field. And if we really look at immune system as an electrical field, by feeling shame, we are lowering our immune system. By not having an empathic connection. Now, you can vouch for this, I think. In an fMRI, a functional MRI, live 3D MRI, if you show someone's face, their entire brain lights up. It's built-in human facial recognition causes the most stimulus of anything in your brain. But if you cover it up, you're not doing the same thing. You don't have a full connection. So not only does the covering lower your immune system from a shame standpoint, but you're also isolated. You are isolated from other humans now. And that also lowers your immune system. So I can't think of one benefit to wearing a mask at all, unless you were like really doing something gross that involved a lot of that kind of stuff. But even that, it's more about just the feeling of, I don't want to taste your spit.
Yeah, it's I think about it also from who wears masks is people wanting to hide their identity because they're doing some kind of criminal act.
You're right, bandits.
So it's either
Marauders.
People who are very ashamed and covering up, or people who are out to do you harm that you need to be aware of.
Yep.
But there's no personal connection.
It's almost like there's a living mitosis happening in society, meaning that half of humanity is going to this side and they're not wearing a mask, and the other half of humanity is going to this side and they're wearing a mask. And we're just watching that unfold, because the people that believe in masks, nothing that you tell them is going to change that. Nothing. They are committed to this. It's an electrical charge. I don't think it's a rational thing. I don't even think it's an emotional thing. At this point, it seems like an electrical charge where they're just physically attracted to being that way. to seeing the world through the eyes of COVID as being bad, which is ironic because COVID is literally a humanity virus. It's literally the exosomes in your body, which means to have a mask is to not want to be human.
Do you think, I was recently rewatched Eyes Wide Shut. Mm-hmm. Remember that Stanley Kubrick movie? Mm-hmm. And in the ritual events, they were all wearing masks. So, could the masks be part of some big ritual that all these people are inadvertently playing a part of? Have you thought about that angle?
Only now. It reminds me of I Pet Goat 2, which is the Kali. The figures that were in that, the Kali mask, right, is this mask of, it's supposed to be scary. It's supposed to be terrifying. Mm-hmm. And the Kali is doing the dance of terror, which, in my opinion, pushes us towards the apocalypse. They're sticking us with vaccines because they want us to wake the fuck up. And if we don't wake up to the vaccines, they're going to stick us with more vaccines. This is why we've been pincushions. This is why it started with one vaccine. And it's like 35, 70, I don't know. It's way up there. It's like a lot. Yeah. There's a lot of needles coming in you. There are 380 trillion viruses in your body, I think. I'm repeating that, but I'm pretty sure. If we put war on one of them, what makes you think they're not going to declare war on another virus next week? They have 380 trillion of them. They could easily say, there's 100 million viruses in you that have to be eradicated right now.
They could just make up a new one, too. I mean, they don't have to be limited to that.
This is true. Isn't it actually, is an electron microscope, you can't do that in like a real-time thing, right? You can only take one picture, and then you have to sort of wait and then take another picture? Or is it more like a video camera where you can see it in real time?
You could use any kind of camera to photograph it, video or still, but you can't observe any behavior of cells because the tissue has to be dead in order to be viewed under that kind of microscope, just like all the microscopes used in medicine and healthcare research. It's only doctors that might follow terrain theory that use dark field microscopes where you could observe living tissue.
Holy shit.
That's why doctors have never seen the protids bud out of their own cells and the whole cyclogeny and pleomorphism, because the microorganisms in our body come from mostly within us. I mean, they can come from the environment as well, but the ones that respond to disease to clean up the terrain and recycle it, they actually come out of our own cells.
How do you know if we're looking at exosomes, we're calling them corona, if we're looking at this COVID thing that we think is there, but we're only looking at that when the cell is dead, how do we know that it was there before we killed that cell to see it?
Wait, say that again?
Yeah, sorry, but it sounds like you're saying we can only see what we're calling COVID-19 through a dead cell. The cell has to be destroyed to see it in the electron microscope. Is that right?
Well, that's a little bit of a different thing because the particles that are exosomes, they're not alive. They don't have, just like a virus is not alive, because to be a living organism, right, you have to have like locomotion, digestion, respiration, reproduction, all those functions. And the exosomes or viral particles don't have any of those functions. They can't reproduce on their own. They can't move. They have no locomotion. I don't think that they don't even have metabolism. Like they can't, produce energy. They're just like passive particles that are just floating around, and they have, a lock and key mechanism to find their target location, and then they have genetic material inside them, and so the target cell takes them up and then reads the genetic material, and that's the information of the message, right? And then they have this ability to take up certain toxins, so they have some proteins on their membrane that allow that to happen. But that's very minimal functioning. So they're not alive. But what like in all these virus papers, what they do is they take some fluid, body fluid from a sick person or animal, and then they mix that with a cell culture, and they make sure that the cell culture is going to put out a lot of exosomes. So they do that in a couple of different ways. Like sometimes they use cancer cells, and cancer cells already put out tons of exosomes. And then sometimes they mix like some kind of toxin with the cells, like antibiotics. And there's plenty of studies that show antibiotics induce exosomes, right? Because they're basically poison, right? Against life, antibiotic. That's what it means. So that's what they're looking at under the microscope. They're looking at a mixture of those cells that are putting out exosomes and the fluid from the sick animal or human. So you don't see purified particles, you see cells and particles. And they're, how do you tell if they're exosomes or something else? Mm-hmm. Because you obviously create the conditions where they're going to be exosomes. So if even if there was a virus there, they should be able to point out in these pictures, this one's a virus and this one's an exosome. But they don't. They only show one particle and they say it's the virus. So they don't account for the exosomes in these pictures. But when they've done this for like viruses that infect bacteria, which are called phages, then they have no problem doing the proper procedure. They have the bacterial culture, that's pure bacteria cells, and they take the particles directly out of there. And then they're purified, and then they look at them under the microscope, and that's all they see. And then they can take the genetic material, or they can characterize it, the structure of it chemically through various other experiments. But basically the first step is they purify out just this particle so they can see what it is. They don't leave it mixed with a bunch of other stuff where you can't tell what's what. So it's it's really strange how they do these experiments. But there's no way you could conclude what they say from the way they do it. So that's how the microscopes, work for that. They're just looking at sections of dead tissue. But with a dark field microscope, it's totally different. You can take a blood sample from, either of us right now, or practically any other tissue sample, and look under it, the microscope. You don't have to add any stain, and you can see the cells moving around and doing their thing. And that's where you can see where the bacteria and fungi come from, is they bud right out of those cells. And, it's possible that they are actually the same thing as exosomes or some other form of it, and then it changes into something else. It's not really been looked at from molecular biology because there's no research money. There's just only a couple of places where there have been scientists, mostly out of Germany, who have done a lot of this research, but it was not funded in the same way and not the same kind of scale as any of this virus-related research. So, not as much is known about it, but I've seen, video of this where you can actually see these things coming right out of the blood cells, and you even see them inside the blood cells. They look like little specks of light under this type of microscope. And when they come out, you can see right before your eyes, they change shape and become bacteria. And so some alternative physicians in this space, like Dr. Barlando from the Alpha Vedic channel, he was just on Crope 777 recently, and I'm going to be interviewing with him in a couple of weeks.
Cool.
He practices this type of medicine, and he can actually diagnose the illness based on which particular species of bacteria they differentiate into when they come out of the blood cells. So because he knows certain ones are suited to clean up a certain type of problem. So he, and this information is out there from research, and so he can narrow down, exactly what the problem is based on that. And then, then customize the treatment to address it. It's really fascinating. I mean, it's it'll blow you away to see that, actually our bacteria come from our own cells.
Right.
I mean, and Becham's experiments back in the day, they're the first experiments to show evidence of this, because he showed that like plant matter can ferment with no exposure to the air. So there's no microorganisms that could come in from the air to cause the fermentation. They had to come from within inside the plant. And he showed the same thing for the putrefaction of a cat. He put a cat inside of a glass jar and sealed it after sucking all the air out, and also it completely putrefied without any external source of microorganisms.
Wow. Poor cat. Anyway.
Well, I think it died naturally. I don't think he sacrificed it, but he could have. I don't know. They do a lot of bad things to animals in scientific experiments even now.
Yeah, they do, right? And if you could, and the fact that that's all, I'm actually glad you brought that up, because it all it does is prove what I'm saying. That there is a fashion spell when you're wearing a white lab coat. You can mutilate a boy's penis. You can perform an abortion. You can cut someone's skin off, peel it off them. You can do so many bad things to people, and it's all okay. And you can torture animals. You can do anything you want in that fashion, inside of that fashion. And it's no different, guys, than the military. If you're wearing a uniform, you can magically kill people. And someone will buy you fucking breakfast at Denny's a week later and tell you, thank you for your service. This is the worst kind of mind control ever. And it's wrapped in fashion. It's like fashion is an electrical field. And when you put it on, it turns off your empathy. It shorts out your humanity, because now you're in a white lab coat. And it's like pin the tail on the donkey, except for you have a fucking scalpel. And there are body parts of living people naked around you. Yes, it's Life of Dexter. It's literally fucking Life of Dexter. And all of us are like, give me more. Give me more. And when our cells are crying, our cells are emitting exosomes like tears, going, help, help, help. And we're going, see, that's the poison. The poison is the crying. The fact that it's crying, that we have to kill that. We must kill tears. We must kill tears. It's like so sickening, guys, and it's so right there in your face. It's called blatant camouflage. When something's so terrifying, you can't face it, so you don't see it. You pretend like it's health. It's really no different. I swear it's no different than if you were to be trapped in a giant spider's web and you were just to release chemicals just to be like, this spider's a pretty good guy, actually. He's got a family. He's not really doing much to me. Just, oh, it's okay. He's just sucking out one of my lungs right now. I'm sure it'll be fine. And we're just keep playing this game. We keep pretending it's all okay. This is the voodoo Kali mask, man. It's right there. It's on us. It's insane. And I cannot stress enough that let's go back to the first Rockefeller. I'm talking about William Devil Bill Rockefeller, the father of John D. Rockefeller. Guys, he was convicted of selling snake oil. That was what he did for a living. Not only did he have multiple wives, not only did he rape his housekeeper when John Rockefeller was 1 year old, but he was selling snake oil. And guys, ready for this? Snake oil is protected by two snakes called caduceus. If you have a caduceus, it's magically not snake oil. It's so in your face. It's like right there. What do you think, Dr. Kaufman?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great example. I mean, that's probably how Rockefeller knew the appropriate strategy to put, non-allopathic doctors out of business, because he hired this guy, Maurice Fishbein, who was the first president of the AMA. And basically, even though he was accused of being a snake oil salesman before he was in that position, he basically used that strategy to discredit competitors. And he built up, this business through all these magazine ads and endorsements. Like, it became like a branding. If their product was endorsed by the AMA, it would be a big marketing boom, and he got kickbacks for all of it. And it had nothing to do with any benefit from those products. It was just a money-making, scheme. But there was something that you said that I wanted to respond to. But now I can't remember what it was that you said.
Well, I say a lot. I tend to push a lot of train tracks through the tunnel, so sorry about that. But on that note, I just want to add to what you're saying. The FDA sued the violet ray device, was an electromagnetic stimulation
I'm familiar
device.
with it. Clive DeCarl uses it.
And that was basically Rockefeller saying, no. You are not looking at the body as an electrical field. That's not going to happen. Not on my watch. We are putting petroleum in your body. We are selling oil. You're going to fucking eat oil, and that's how you're going to heal yourself. It's not going to be through any other way. We're going to allow your system to heal itself if you're nice to us. And that's literally what's been happening. It's been hurting your immune system, but less. And so that less feels like you're healing. It feels like that's what's happening. And guys, that's why the term quack was a Rockefeller. It is a Rockefeller term. It's a spell. It's a trance state. You're allowed to throw this sticky cellophane tape on someone by calling them that quack. It's the first conspiracy theory. The word conspiracy theory. It's the first one. It's quack. It's this electrical field you assign to things. And that's why if you go buy a natural supplement, there's an electrical field on the box. Think about the placebo effect. On the box, it says something to the effect of, this is not medicine, or this has not been approved as medicine. That is think about it, guys. The placebo effect is real. That is a spell. And when you're buying that box, you're basically buying that truth. You're buying that spell. So even when you're going out there buying supplements, you're still falling for the voodoo. And this is not about you guys being weak. This is just how it works. You're dealing with zeitgeist voodoo. You're dealing with symbolic voodoo. It's just, this is the problem with Babylon. When we have this Babylon thing happening, we have no choice but to believe these rumors because they're rampant. I can prove it. Look at how many people are getting sick from having humanity. Oh, we discovered humanity in your cells. Oh, now I'm sick. It shows you how powerful this works. The truth of all this, it's right in your face, guys. It's right there.
Turpentine is a really good example of this because they basically label it, say it's poison.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's one of the most potent healing agents that's available. It's so potent that they have to say it's poison so that, when people hear about it, they'll put out a YouTube video saying, can you believe these idiots are recommending, turpentine?
Right.
Whereas in the past, it was listed as, being a treatment for like 60 different diseases.
Yeah. It's intense.
Right, in the Merck manual, not in some, not even in a naturopathic book.
Yeah.
In the Merck manual, it's by the Merck Pharmaceutical Company. So, but what you were saying before about the that doctors have permission to carry out acts of violence, mm-hmm. right? I mean, that's really what the license is, right? Same thing with the military, as you mentioned, but there are some examples of this that people may not realize how sadistic and psychopathic they are, and I'm talking about really the whole organ transplantation business. Oh. And, I used to be an organ donor myself, and I thought this was a way to save people's lives, but they actually sell these organs. Like the hospital that harvests them, they make a boatload of money selling these organs. And they don't cut you in. They don't even tell you. That's like totally top secret that this even occurs. Like if you called up the hospital administrator, they would just hang up the phone on you, or they would say, no, that's ridiculous, but there's plenty of evidence to this, that a lot of money changes hands. So they have to harvest the organs when you're still alive. If you're dead, they're no good. So, like, I actually evaluated, I consulted with someone, okay, who was a respiratory therapist. And there's like some, test that you're supposed to do to show the person is brain dead before you actually kill them by slicing them open and taking their organs out.
Oh, that's nice.
Right? Because that's what they do. You have to be alive, so they have to kill you. And they kill you by cutting out your organs because they want to keep you alive as long as possible until they get those organs into a box of ice. Sorry. Oh. So this guy was like called in to do this apnea test, which is basically like, they see how long you don't breathe on your own after they take the respirator off of you. And, he was there to witness it or, do the test. And he said the person was still alive. And the surgeon said, I disagree, and started doing the procedure. And he basically got, post-traumatic stress disorder from that. But he tried to report it, he tried to do the right thing, and he was just pegged as crazy and suspended from work and, had to go try to get workers' comp or something. Yeah. And he was not the same man after that.
And there's no procedure to back out of that, Andy. No one in the operating room is allowed to pull the emergency cord and say, "What the fuck are you doing?" Dude.
Yeah, because the surgeon was the boss, and you can't say, not do what the surgeon says.
And there should be that cord. That emergency cord should be there. Anyone should be allowed to do that. But it's the procedure. Guys, this is why I'm telling you, when you see someone in uniform, on the whole, you're looking at someone that's been electrically trapped in a procedure. Their humanity can't get out. And the way society treats them is it treats them like a procedure. It elevates them to where they can do no wrong. That's why you will give your child to a doctor and say, yeah, stick a bunch of fucking needles in it. I trust you. You're wearing a white coat, man. What's the worst that could happen? And where are we at now? There's at least 100 autoimmune disorders that have been discovered in the last 100 years. Who do you think's causing the autoimmune disorders?
Well, it's funny. They like to rename things and come up with new diseases, but I would bet that all those 100 autoimmune disorders, they're all one thing.
Really?
Yeah, and it's all poisoning.
Yeah, basically, we're being poisoned by voodoo doctors, and they don't even know it. They don't even fucking know it. Some of them might, but it's such a small, it doesn't matter. They don't even know it.
Well, they all have at least one moment, I think many moments, where they realize it, because they see what happens right before their own eyes. At the minimum, they see that people just don't get better.
I don't know if they see it, Andy. The reason why I say that is because there's something about the human body cannot accept a certain amount of knowing that it's doing something wrong. The guilt is so strong that their retinas physically are not perceiving the same world as you are. I'm only saying that because I've lost my best friend over this, where at first he was saying, well, if vaccine injuries weren't hypothetical, I'd believe you, which is just like, but because they're not.
Well, so what I think, I mostly agree with what you're saying. I just think that they all have a moment where, and it might be very fleeting, where they say, gosh, I wonder if I'm doing anybody any good here. I wonder if I'm not making some people sick.
Yeah, you're right.
Then they quickly dismiss that, because then they realize, well, if that's true, well, what's going to happen in my life? What do I do next? And then they're like, step back, shake that off, That was just an irrational thought. I'm going to get back to it. Of course, I'm a doctor. I'm doing good things for people. I'm helping people every day, right? They respect me. They value my opinion. So it's really easy to convince yourself out of it and then just live in the denial, in perpetuity.
Yep. In fact, each incident would become a ritual where you step deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yes.
Into that. And it would become harder and harder and harder. And what happens? You get promoted and raised and elevated.
Yes.
And badged, given medals.
Right.
It's a descent into a living, burning hell while they're cheering, while everyone's cheering for you as you step in. And it's all about that uniform. It's all about that, because I've seen soldiers in the same framework where they cut off. They become the procedure. They give in to the machine. Evil is not a possession. Evil is an anti-possession. It's the evacuation of person. The person changes to procedure. Procedure. You morph into it. And it's so bad. And I think if you look at what's happening around us right now, everyone's starting to feel more guilty for the things that they've done because of this apocalypse. The sun has no sunspots anymore. What was hidden is showing itself. And people are feeling shame from that. And it's showing itself as masks. That's how it's manifesting itself. You're seeing masks because people are seeing the things that they've done. It's becoming impossible to ignore Building 7. It's impossible to ignore vaccines. It's impossible to ignore that politics is professional wrestling. It's impossible to ignore that we flushed our entire Constitution, freedom, and sovereignty away. We've given it to hyenas, drunk, psychopathic hyenas that will rip our throats out for sport and not even eat us. And it causes shame. Either we rise above it or we fall into it. It's literally a rapture. It's a truth rapture. That's what we're having right now, is a truth rapture. And I've lost my best friend who's a nurse in WakeMed to this. I finally got him to see your video. And he called you a voodoo doctor. He said you were a fortune teller, just making shit up. Because I'm telling you, it's because of the shame. It's because of the lack of retina. It's because of the constant, over and over, continued stepping deeper and deeper. Another vaccine, another procedure, another this, another that, and another uniform. We're watching people lose themselves. It's the hardest thing. Okay, convincing a soldier they're committing murder is fucking hard. Convincing a nurse they're committing homicide is even harder, guys. It's even harder because they don't have a gun in their hand. It's that much harder to convince them that they're doing the same thing. And that's what we have all around us right now. We don't have the electricity. People have been lost in the procedure and they zap their electricity, their ego field, and they can't admit that they've done something wrong. They're blinded by the light. The truth hurts too much that they can't see it. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty incredible, though. I mean, once you see the truth, and it gets really hard to understand, how other people can't see it. You forget what it was like for you before you knew about it, right?
Yep.
But I never had anyone in my life. Well, actually, there was one person who, but it was only for maybe a year before I was open to the truth myself, who talk to me about things, and I was pretty hostile.
Right.
Right at first. But I did warm up, and then when certain circumstances happened in my life, I was then ready to look, and I had this adversarial thing, and I wish people would do this now, actually, because this would be great. So, take my presentation, for example, and go out there and do the research and try to prove me wrong.
Right.
See if you can really find the information, because that's how I started learning about the truth. Actually, is I was trying to prove somebody wrong. I was looking for evidence to support global warming, and I tried really hard, but I only found evidence to the contrary.
Yeah.
And so I think that'd be a great way to approach it.
Yeah.
But you have to look at the evidence objectively. You can't go in there and misinterpret everything you find. You got to actually look at it.
When I dove into vaccines, luckily, because I started a career as a writer, I was able to dive into vaccines, put 4 or 5 months into it, really deep study. And I'm not trying to say I know all about them. I don't, but I had the time and the calories to burn. I was glad that I had the time. And I had the same descent you did. It kept getting worse. The information kept getting worse, not better.
Yeah.
And the arguments from the other side kept getting weaker, not stronger. They kept getting really shittily weaker. Like the CDC's telling you, well, no, you can swallow aluminum so you can inject it. I mean, that's such a wrong thing to say, to suggest that swallowing something is the same as injecting it in your arm.
Well, it's even more than that, because your body handles different things differently. So there's a whole field of pharmacology called pharmacodynamics, which tells you what's the effect that a drug or substance has on your body. And they didn't do those studies for aluminum. They just skipped the whole thing and made that ridiculous statement, even though that's the standard for everything else. Mm-hmm. Is to do those kinds of studies, and they haven't been done until the past 5 or 10 years. And you know what actually happens with the aluminum when it goes in your body through an injection? So unless there's crazy screaming baby situation or screaming child that's fighting, like I said before, it actually just gets walled off as soon as it gets in your body. Your immune system comes and creates this thing called a granuloma, which is it's like a rubber room, and it encapsulates it because it knows it's so toxic, and it doesn't know what to do with it, because we weren't always exposed to aluminum. It only was a product of mining and industry, so it's not really very prevalent in the natural environment if we lived on the land and didn't do mining deep into the earth, right?
Well, God forbid we come back to this idea that the body is an electrical field. Hey, I wonder what a piece of metal shrapnel would do if we throw it in the middle of our circuit breaker in the house. Gee, I wonder if that might be a problem. Fuck, guys. Fuck. What else do we need? It's literally shrapnel. We're literally being told, if you inject swine parts and shrapnel into your skin, everything's going to be great, buddy. Everything's going to be great. And hey, you can trust me. I cut your kid's dick off. I know what I'm talking about. He's not going to have penis cancer now because I fucking chopped it. So we're all good. Oh, and by the way, when you're dead, right before you die, I'm going to fucking kill you after I cut your organs out and sell them. So of course you can trust me. Of course. Why? Because bread is a food group. Bread is a food group, damn it. And just start naming off all the things that doctors have told you over the years. Start listening to the ideas that, marijuana makes you rape black people. Just all this crazy shit that they start telling you. Guys, they're not even trying to fool you anymore. I think they're actually trying to get you to wake up. I think they're like, do you think you could stick 300 needles in it? No, they would never go for that. I think you can. I think I could do it. I really wish these guys would wake up. But since they won't, let's stick some more needles in them. Like,
well, listen, they have like one vaccine that has 5 different vaccines in it in one needle to get around that problem.
Man, thank God.
Yeah.
The wonders the wonders of advancing science. You know, this is why we need. And I tell you, the biggest, sickest joke is, guys, this is what universal healthcare looks like. Government is your doctor, and everything that's inside your body is evil, and they will hunt it down and fucking kill it. And none of you gets to go to a park. None of you gets to go walk around in any kind of public capacity until we do. That's what public universal healthcare is.
I'll tell you something that's even more scary of where it's going, James, is because, you know, I've seen this coming for a while, that there's going to be no more human doctors. There's just going to be AI.
Yep.
That's going to make all the decisions, because this electronic health record thing that, you know, they basically have almost fully implemented to the whole system, that everything has to be electronic, and it's not done in any efficient way. It's basically done in a way to control what you do as a healthcare provider, because every time you go in there to document anything which is required for every single thing you do, it basically tells you, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? And it guides your decisions right to what they want, what's most profitable.
Yep.
And it's just one small step away from just having the computer do the whole thing directly, and maybe, you know, have a small handful of doctors here and there for, you know, backup in case the AI, you know, fries itself or something like that.
Well, actually, I could see it getting worse, because I went through naval healthcare. I have what's actually literally called the best social medicine in the world, which, oh my God, you do not want to hear what the best social medicine in the world is.
No, I know, it's horrible.
But I tell you something, guys, as a programmer, what's coming is called blockchain. And now, blockchain itself is not inherently evil, but since enough of us didn't adopt our own currency, it's pretty much all going to be evil now. It's just, sorry, but that's the way it happens. But when blockchain takes over medicine, I guarantee you, you're going to have to hire a doctor whose job is to hack your file to convince it that you do not have cancer. I am not fucking kidding you. This blockchain will decide that you have something that you don't have. And no matter where you go, it will try and treat you for that. I've seen this firsthand. I've seen it in the Navy, where you will go in with what you think is a problem in your right shoulder, and you will come out and your left shoulder is missing, and your right shoulder hurts 5 times worse. And that is literally the blockchain coming to eat you. It's the evacuation of human, and it's being replaced by this machine that will swallow you, because it's easier for you just to, look, man, I know we screwed up on you, but the blockchain will get this right eventually. So we just need you to process this, and we will list it as an error, but you're going to have to lose a kidney. It's just, sorry. It's in the file. It's going to be way too hard to change. You guys think I'm kidding, but if you look now at all the surgery mistakes that happen, it's showing you. It's giving you a clue as to what it is. And I've gone into the Navy where I've never had a cavity in my life. I go into the Navy. They tell me I have cavities. They drill me. They put a filling in me. It falls out 6 hours later, and now I have basically a hole in my tooth that wasn't there. This is real. This is what's coming. We have to take care of our own health care, which means we have to adopt terrain theory, which means we have to start asking each other, what did you eat? What's your environment like? What's your terrain like? Doctors don't ask that. Why? Because that's not how they work. They function on germ theory. It's all about germ theory. Andrew, I don't want to keep you. In fact, I want to let you go. Do you have anything else you want to tell us? Anything on the COVID line? Do you see headway? Are things looking good? Are things looking bad? What do you think?
Well, I think both. I mean, there definitely are a lot of people, even some people who surprised me. Like I got in touch with my realtor earlier to have her look for some property for me. And she's like, I don't buy this whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I was pretty shocked, because she's, like a pretty mainstream type of person, definitely I wouldn't show her the David Icke video right away, but it was pretty impressive that she's like that. And then, I have a group of local people that's growing, that we have secret get-togethers. And I had a play date today. Like, kids came over to my house to play with my kids,
right
like
on.
in person, know. And we played, basketball out in the back, like the two dads and the two boys. And so it was like a regular, experience.
Right on.
And that was fantastic. But, on the other hand, I heard that somebody was not allowed to go into Trader Joe's without a mask. Mm. And, I don't normally shop there anyway, but, I'm not going into any store that requires me to wear a mask. And is that going to keep me out of a grocery store? So right. I'm a little bit worried about some of these things. But, I think I'm keeping a very positive outlook, trying to make sure that I take care of myself and have good perspective and keep up with my sort of spiritual side of things. Mm-hmm. And see that, there's a lot of ways that this situation can work out really well, for me, for you, and even for most of humanity. So I'm trying to think along those lines and keep doing what I'm doing to, get the information out to people who wouldn't otherwise know about it. In fact, I was just going to be doing an interview for an Argentinian show. So I'm going to see if I can brush up on my Spanish, so it's really exciting that, the message is going far and wide and there's interest in it. And the interest seems to be growing and not dying down. Yeah,
it's definitely doing that. And you've been the tip of the spear on this one. And keep going, man. You're kicking so much ass. It's great. I freaking love you for it. I mean, I did anyway, but it's just, I really, really appreciate you. All of us do. Everyone in chat does. And lots more people. You've been blowing up and you deserve it. So I'm glad to see it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Are there any burning questions from anyone in the chat? Because I do want to, give people some attention if they want to know something.
Totally. I'm looking right now. $1,000 fines are happening in Dallas for not wearing a mask. Yep. There's also a flyer. I'm posting this flyer. I just put it in chat. You guys can use that. It's some of that language came from Dr. Kaufman that helps that. And if anyone has any questions right now, you can ask them. And let me see. There's actually a lot of stuff coming by. No, I don't see anything.
Okay.
Have you heard of Dr. Shiva? Yeah, he's heard of that. And yeah, keep going, Andy. And thanks for checking in. I'm going to ask you every now and then if you'll just check in and just tell us if you think things are getting better or things are getting worse. Because yeah, thank you, man. Thanks.
Well, you have a good handle on that too. So we always ask each other.
Yep.
But I'm happy to come back anytime. And even if you have other friends, like if you ever want to have Benjamin and me on together or something like that, that would be a blast.
Great. That sounds good. Yeah, actually, Joe Ignicio and I are working on a program like that right now, so we will let you know.
Oh, great.
Yeah, definitely. So, hydrogen peroxide, any thoughts on that?
Yes, it's good for getting out grease and blood stains.
Okay.
I wouldn't take it internally. It's pretty toxic. It actually generates free radicals. And everyone talks about antioxidants. Well, that is an oxidant.
Okay.
So, and I think people generally would consider using it in context of germ theory because it's an antiseptic, right? It kills anything on contact pretty much. And they used to recommend putting it on cuts and such, but it probably causes more damage to the tissue than it helps anything.
What food do you recommend people grow?
Anything they'll eat.
Okay.
I mean, like I'm experimenting with growing some food this year too, and I got like heirloom and organic seeds, and I tried to pick a healthy variety of things. I didn't get really anything in the way of legumes or grains, mostly like lettuces and some nightshades and greens and asparagus and herbs. Like, actually, one thing that would be really helpful is to grow a variety of herbs because they have medicinal properties. Like, I've stocked up on some things recently, like fennel seeds and milk thistle seeds. That because a little bit of that goes a long way, and it's pretty inexpensive if you order it. So I'm not going to plant those necessarily. I'll just use those medicinally. But growing cilantro and parsley, thyme, sage, all these things have good medicinal properties.
Yep.
So definitely recommend, don't forget about the herbs. They're not just for tasting good.
Right on. That's why at the hospital, when you go to the hospital, they always have the herb gardens all over the place because they know how important herbs are, and that it's so important for them. That's why they're always asking you, hey, what did you eat? What have you been eating? What's your diet like? I'm being sarcastic.
Man, the quality of the food in the hospital is like the poorest anywhere you go practically. I mean, it's all like 100% processed food. It's like frozen TV dinners that they give you. They should have the best quality food there if they're trying to heal people from illness.
Yep. Do you know anything about moss?
Moths?
Moss, M-O-S-S?
Oh yeah.
That's a question.
Mean, like what? You mean as a treatment for something?
I have no idea. That's all I know. Just someone asked.
That's a question for Bryce.
All right.
You probably know that. Yeah, no, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
But I'll tell you that there are so many different botanicals that have healing properties. It would take a lot of study to be familiar with everything.
Sure.
So I have, sort of a knowledge of a bunch of things that I know work for various kind of conditions, and they're accessible mostly in geographically where I live. So, and I think that's important because there are different, plants that grow in different areas. And like with essential oils, like it's been shown that, if you're in Australia and you use tea tree oil, or you're, in Florida and you have lemon oil, essential oil, or somewhere else and have a different one, that they can all actually have very similar healing properties. But they were used by different cultures because that's what grew where they lived.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot to that locality part.
Hey, Snake, could you please paste Dr. Kaufman's YouTube link, or anyone, if you guys have Dr. Kaufman's YouTube link, could you paste it in the chat? Because you guys are asking some good questions, but there are too many of them. And I'm going to encourage you, because I know some of these he's definitely answered on his channel before, and you guys just have to just go through his channel. He's got a lot of great stuff. I can't recommend enough that interview you did. I'm sorry, Andy, I've even asked you their name again, but the couple you did it with who wrote that book,
oh yeah, Dawn and David. I
can't recommend that interview enough, guys. It's such a great interview that dives into germ theory, not even theory, germ theory. Hey, it's germ theory. See, that's really what it is. But seriously, it's a fantastic interview. It's one of several on there, but I found it the most compelling, just in opening my mind about what's really going on with medicine.
So I'll tell you, James, Dawn and David and I kind of hit it off, and so we're going to be doing a whole series of interviews.
Right on.
And the next one is going to be next Friday, the 24th.
Fantastic.
So we're not doing it live, but we're going to do it in the morning that day, and I'll probably post it later that next Friday, so a week from today.
Awesome.
Actually, I have a couple of. I'm interviewing someone else too. I'm interviewing Dr. Jennifer Daniels on Monday.
Sweet.
For my show, and she's one of the people that I learned so much from. So it's pretty incredible for me that she agreed to come on my channel and talk to me about stuff. And I'm sure we'll talk a lot about the virus because she's done her own research independent of my research, and we basically have come to almost all the same conclusions.
Excellent. Well, I encourage everyone to check that out. I encourage everyone to check out your channel. Snake has pasted the link. Thank you so much. So is V Payson. Most people already know. They're like, dude, here it is right here. That'll get you to his channel. It'll also be in the show notes. And yeah, let's stay in touch and stay updated. And thanks a lot for giving us your time. I know you've had a long day today, Andy, but thanks for calling in.
Yeah, no, listen, it's a pleasure. It's always fun talking to you. And, it's
Likewise.
much lower pressure than most of my other interviews. Good. So I appreciate that, James.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you. You have a great night, okay? I'm going to...
yeah, you too.
All right, take care.
Okay.
I'm going to turn this off a sec, and I want to tell you guys one more thing. Don't everybody run off at once. I mean, you can, but... Okay, so first of all, Vatsock... My website is broken, and if you can help me with this HT access thing, please help me. It's such a problem. People are like, we can't find your website, and it's driving me nuts. So please, we need to get in touch, because that really helps me up. Thanks for the super chat, Steve. Man, it's great to see you, Steve. Thank you so much. Guys, Dr. Kaufman is a freaking hero. He's literally the first to step out, and so many others have gotten behind him, and look at how big his stomp went. It got so big that freaking people like David Icke and London Real are talking about it. It's been translated into several languages, and he's just one guy. He's just one person. And what did he do? He looked at life in the face and said, is it real? Is what I'm being told real? That is the only key you need to escape mind control, is to learn how to ask, is that real? Is that real? And most of us never ask. We just assume that what we've been told is true. And that is part of the apocalypse. That is how we awaken to the apocalypse, is we ask those questions. Is that real? Is that true? Now, I want to stress, this is James True, the quack guy. But you can trust me. I'm telling you, man, your immune system is an electrical field. Your confidence, how you feel about yourself, is your immune system. If you feel good, you're going to be good. If you feel under attack, you are now looking for a vibration to attack you. You're going to get poisoned by that. Pay attention to your environment and get out of Babylon. Babylon is going to get worse and worse and worse until all of us get out. The apocalypse is a great thing. Why? It's forcing us all to go back to the soil. It's forcing us all to grow our food again. It's forcing us all to reconnect with who we are and with our inner ability to heal. The cures are inside you, but we are literally attacking our cures. We are snipers right now with what we believe. We are shooting the very messenger that's calling for help. We are in the tower and we are shooting that person. If anyone comes out for help, shoot them in the head. That's what we're doing. It shows you just how powerful the immune system is. That despite all the lies, despite the fact that we declared war on the cold is literally that's our body doing its job. And we declare war on that. Shows you just how powerful your body is. Imagine if all of your crew actually heard that you believed in them. Imagine if you believed in your own body's ability to do this stuff. You're going to be a much more powerful person by doing that. Mike Dyer, there you are. I just want to say thank you. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks for the donation too. Thanks for the super chats, guys. And I did a stream earlier today on ayahuasca and psychedelics and DMT. And what it is it's a talk that's explaining more about this electrical field, and that when you're doing ayahuasca, what you're doing is having a psychic death. You're electrically killing yourself for a moment. You guys might enjoy that too. I normally wouldn't do 2 streams at once, but I felt inspired and wanted to do that. So there's 2 there. So it gives you something more to go. And I will quickly say, because I'm losing viewers, I know, I'm sorry. I've turned all this into podcasts. So if you want to listen, you can subscribe to the podcast and check things out that way. And there's my dog, Butter. Pretty cool dog. Pretty awesome. How's it going, buddy? Doing good? You want to say goodnight to everybody? Do you? You little good boy? You little good boy? Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for being you. Let's keep making this the best apocalypse ever. Everything that's happening to us right now is a blessing. It's allowing us to wake up. It's giving us the tools we need all around us to wake up. Find as much compassion as you can for these people in masks. Realize it's all shame-based electrical issues. And don't take flack, but show compassion. You can do both. It's another very subtle thing that you have. You guys crushed it. You guys did it. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. I'm going to hit end stream here. And thanks for the super chat.